Good afternoon, students. Welcome to today's session for Social Science 1. This is actually an examination-based contact class for the upcoming examinations, but also for subsequent examinations for August and for November. Normally we would do 3 presentations, but now we are doing it all one, so you can use it for whatever time you chose to write. Well, just for the background, I hope some of you have written the assignments and submitted the assignment already that was due on the 15th of January. We are just making a presentation, and really the most important thing here is to get into contact with you so that we can at least create some avenues of communication. So my name is Benjamin Nathaniel, and I'm tutor for Social Science 1. Maybe I should go back to this slide just for you to get my contact details here. That's my phone number and my email, so we can always use that one for any further communication that we might want to pursue. I'm just putting on my timer here. Okay, so for the background, the subject that you are sitting for here is Social Science 1, and the exam that you will be writing either in April or in August, it's for 3 hours, which is out of 30 marks. So you will have instruction and everything on your question paper. The structure now, since this is not for only one exam, I cannot put how many marks for what question, but this is just to give you an idea that normally for this type of question paper or for exam, I would set 3 main questions, which each has some sub questions under it. So question 1 would be, for example, 1.1 up to 1.5, for example, which would be let me say out of 40 marks. Now question 1 is normally for the background, like for how the pedagogies, the assessment methods, you know this background things that you need to know. So it's not really the core part of the subject, but this is actually the learning or the teaching style. How do you assess your students, and what do you assess them on? And session 2 is normally on map work and geography and population, like population structure for Namibia. Remember that most of the things that you are learning in Social Science 1 is really, most of it is really for Namibia. You of course need to understand regional and put things in perspective from regional and to global spheres, but what you are being trained for in Social Science 1, this is a first Social Science module, so it's normally focused on Namibian social issues, ranging from reading maps to population structures to history, to communication, and to issues relating to economy, and to issues relating to HIV, and you know the whole continuum. So most of these things will be based on your study guide, although, as I always tell all other students, like students who came before you, is that I would normally ask roughly say 20 or 30% of the question paper will be testing your own knowledge, not necessarily what is in the question paper, or what is in the study guide. Of course, the study guide is important, that's the core part, but you also need to be able to interpret social issues in the country. If it's a year like this year, it's a year of elections, you need to understand what are the issues happening around political issues happening around those circles. You need to know what's happening in Zimbabwe now, what's happening in South Africa, or our partners. These social issues, you need to understand them, because only then you'll be able to put things into perspective when you understand things from other areas. And then the rest, of course, will be coming from the study guide. As we move on, I just want to take your attention to the structure of basic education, really to tell you this is from the National Curriculum for Basic Education of 2010. If there's a new version, you can, but you need to Google that, because you need to have that document, the National Curriculum for Basic Education. It's available, I think, at NIED website. So, but just Google it, because that's really where most of these issues are coming from. But of course, you know, senior secondary is no longer 11 to 12. You have had, you are in this area, you have had the phasing out of some grades, but that is not the focus of here. This information is from the Curriculum for Basic Education is of 2010. So you need, of course, to keep updating yourself. But the course we are registering for is the upper primary, which is grade 5 to grade 7. This course, because this is Bachelor of Science, Bachelor of Education Senior Primary, which is upper primary in terms of this slide. So this is where you are falling in this block. So the whole continuum, you remember, you need to know people that you are teaching, they have already gone through the two phases, the pre-primary, the lower primary. But what are they learning in those two phases? They are very, very basic things about the environment, so to know, probably just to know the regions, basic issues that any kid or any learner need to know. But now as we move to upper primary, we go to this slide, which we say now in upper primary phase, this text is also from the same document, the one from which this slide is from. So in upper primary, the learner now build on the foundation. Now when it says on this foundation, is now foundation which is from lower primary. So learner build on a foundation to develop irreversible literacy and numeracy, to develop learning skills, basic natural sciences, social sciences. That way you are sitting for this module. So actually this is where you are falling. So, and this is what this module is preparing you to know how to handle teaching at that level of education. So I want still also just to put like I mentioned earlier, to say what are the main components of the first, like I've told you at the beginning here, that you will have question 1, which will be based mostly on the first 3 units of your module. So which is not really the core part of social sciences, but it's actually like the molding at the beginning. How do you assess your students, and what are the basic pedagogies in social sciences? We go back to that slide. You see what are the main components that you need to focus on as you prepare for your exam. You need, of course, to understand the value and attitudes that learner that will develop. All these are in your study guide. Of course, you have to, when you answer your question, you need as well to reference other, not necessarily to reference, but to use other sources of where you can get information. But this is really, you can get it all from your study guide. But it make much or better sense to inform yourself outside the study guide. Right. Like I said, the first one is to understand the values and attitudes. What will learners develop as they learn social studies? What will they learn about the cultural or the relationship between cultures, the region, environment, the history. So these are the values and attitudes of the learners. Learners will start to appreciate that, okay, I'm not the only one. It's not only my opinion that matters, but actually I need to understand that even this other student or other learner who is from a different cultural background, the learner will start to understand that I'm not the only, this is not only the culture that we have, or if somebody belongs to this religion, or I belong to the other one, to appreciate all these spheres of life. And the important thing is actually environment. Not that it's important more than others, but the environment also help the learner establish herself within the whole context, of like either of the region or of the constituency he or she is from. So you need at least to be showing students already that, like, the map of, if you are from Omaruru or from Sandi, whatever constituency you are in. So normally students who are at this level, chances are high that most of them have not traveled too much out of their basic or out of the place where they are born. So you need to start showing them that you are part of a society and there are other constituencies or other regions. So you need to show the map of Namibia, for example, and say, no, you are here. Or if you are showing the map of your constituency, you show the student that you are here. There are other schools in the community. There are churches. There are all these type of things. So at least to open the learner to outside where she is or where he is existing. All right. Let's move on to methods of presenting social sciences or social studies. All this. What method you want? You want to use to do a project? You want to use a textbook method, question and answer? All these things are in your study guide. But the question is that what do you use in what situation? For example, if you are teaching about, let me say you are teaching about HIV and AIDS, you probably need to use a sort of to use a role play, for example, or something that fits into people starting to understand values of others, in the community, because some of these are actually stigmatized sort of topics, or sort of so you need to bring the students together. One example of where you use, for example, a project in presenting a module is, for example, if you are talking about weather data, because weather data is not something that you can do in a day. Of course, you can introduce it in a day, but maybe you need to say to your students and say, okay, no, go to a local newspaper. I think I don't know if it's first or probably third or fourth page of the Namibian, always you find that weather data or weather information for the country or for the city you are living in. But not only that, you can also go to, for example, to the meteorological office, the website of Namibia, Met Office. Met Office is meteorological office. So how do you get that? How do you send students to record, for example, weather information for a month in terms of a project, or to record weather information, for example, the length of the day, how it changes, for example, because the length of a day is not the same as the sun moves in angle. But also to understand the type of questions, what are the short question, structured question, and source-based question, and just forgive my there's a typo here, and learner-centered education. If you look at that educational curriculum for the same document I referred to you at the beginning, you will also see that there is a lot of emphasis put on learner-centered education. For now, you need to just appreciate it and be able to understand what it is, but later as you move on with your other like when you go to fourth year, you will realize that there is a module which is specifically on learner support for social sciences, which I would recommend already if you are you can already if you have access to some of this information, you can already start to familiarize yourself on how do you support students students with for example, audio problems or visual problems or cognitive problems. How do you make sure that when you are teaching your students, all students are sort of catered for? You don't just go and use a video, for example, if you know that some of your learners do not have some visual impairments. Visual impairment does not only mean completely blind, but it means that somebody probably cannot see 10 meters, or like cannot read letters or characters 10 meters away. Or when you project something on the board, you see some students, for example, like getting some, like not crying, but like having some tears, which means that there is a little effect on the students. So understanding your students at the beginning will help you understand how do you approach the teaching. So and this is it's a very important topic, learner-centered education. You need to visit the Ministry of Education, either physically or at the centers or on the website, and get some of this document. The policy on education is there, so get these documents, because like I said, your assessment will not be based solely on the study guide. Study guide is of course the primary source, but there will be a lot of there will be some questions that will require you to show the institution what is your level of engagement in community or in social affairs. How do you understand the social things happening in the country? All right, we cannot spend more time here. This is exactly what I explained here on understanding the values and attitude. Here we I just tried to expand it to say what does it mean when you are saying understanding values and attitudes, which says now, like I said, cooperation, cultural values, political values, issues related to poverty. These are the things that learners will start to learn that, oh, okay, so in this certain part of the country, people don't have access to water. Why do we have access to water? Or if you do this type of if you insult somebody, or if you start bullying somebody, that is actually like intolerance to other people's status, or whether you are laughing at the person because it's not well fed. I don't mean to say the person is thin, but not well fed probably, or it's not cleaned, because you don't know the circumstances leading to the person. Not maybe there's no maybe the person is from a poor background. Maybe there's no soap at home. So this tolerance of other people's it's what it is referred to in tolerance of other social, cultural, and political values and beliefs. As we can see, on the last bullet, which is the possible verbs in question here, I think there is a slide toward the end which talks about the verbs. But even now, we can already speak about this question at this point is normally just list. So it does not really require much a level of thinking. Like when you say list, just list. This is one of the problems, and I need to emphasize on it, that a lot of students do not pay attention to what is being asked. If I say discuss, and you have list things with bullets, it already means that you don't understand what it means to discuss. When I say explain, you can't list. Or compare or contrast, or on the first few pages of your study guide, of course, there is all possible verbs in question that are there. I think probably there are more than 20 or so, which you need to understand. When somebody says I'll illustrate, what does it mean? So illustrate means that I need to see some sort of drawing, something that not only text. So these things you need to pay attention to it. So really take time, even tonight or as soon as possible, to just to look at that part where you pay attention to the verbs in questions. As I have referred to earlier, I mentioned that there are many types of methods that one can use to present a student, depending on the circumstances of the student and the nature of the topic that you are addressing. I spoke about the project method, for example, when I said already a few minutes ago that if you are working with weather data, you need, for example, to give a group of students, maybe 3 of them, and have a project and say, okay, collect this weather data over the period of 1 month, and come and interpret all these type of things. Maybe you can even ask them to sort of pose questions to themselves. What is the mean? What is the average temperature for the month? What was the highest rainfall? What are the days with rainfall less than 5 millimeter? This type of things. And you give probably a week to those students, because recording weather data for a month does not mean that it will take you a month to record. It only means that probably for the previous month or whatever, you can collect all your sources if you have access to newspapers. So these are the things you can always put in the mind, because if you are in a remote area of I don't mean to denigrate a village, let me say Tsungkwe. If you are in Tsungkwe, or you are in I'm trying to put in perspective those remote areas. In remote areas, you don't give a project where you ask students to use newspapers for a month, because obviously the student will not, chances are high the person will not get those newspapers, because they probably get there late, and it's sporadic, it's not a steady thing. But if you are in a town, like you are in Windhoek, or you are in Wavisbai, or you know that the student can obviously get access to this information, then you need to give a project that, if I don't get a newspaper in the house, of course a neighbor will get it, or a local library can have it. This type of things. These are things you need to analyze in what type of methods to use. There are some small method. I mean, not small, but easy method. Easy methods. Easy, by easy, I don't mean easy to be carried out, but it means does not require more time. Like question and answer is probably just you asking the students in class, or through an assessment, because that's really that is what most teachers assess students with, or present the social studies, or just about any other module for that matter, in that way. So the point really here is, depending on the nature of the topic you are addressing at that time, you need to prepare as you do your class or your preparation, because you will need it's not in here, it's not covered here, but you're planning your lesson planning. As you do your planning the previous day, or the previous 2 or 3 days that I'm going to teach about this topic today, you already need to identify which which method of teaching you are going to use, depending on the topic. If you know that you are going to teach about the history, you already need that maybe I'll need to use a source method, or I'll need, this type of information. This is what we're trying to emphasize here. And you can see now that here in this part, you have also when it comes to possible verbs, it comes to now discussion. And discussion requires really you to have a broader understanding of the issues. That's why I'm saying, if the question is in which situation do you use question and answer method, then you need to, of course, have a very good understanding of what question and answer method mean. You need to tell me first that there are various methods that one can use to present social sciences. Some of them are this and this and this and this. However, when it comes to question and answer method, I can use it in the situation when, because of what. This is how you answer a discussion sort of question, and it probably, in most cases, it will take even half a page, because to discuss, you also need to present what are the benefits, and what are the disadvantages. Exactly the way I spoke about the project method, or that's how you need to structure your answer if you are addressing such question. Okay, I see we're 15 minutes. I'll need to speed up a bit, but still that's just again an expansion or extension of what we spoke about earlier, to understand the type of questions. When you say you are using a source-based question, what does it mean? The short question, the structured question, the characteristic of questions, that it start with a title, and you give maybe some novel data, and then you give some small headings and subheadings. This is really all in your study guide. So here is just to put it to your attention, because you need to emphasize on this as you prepare for your exam, especially those that are writing for already in April. Now, as we go now toward Unit 4 and 5 and all other units, we are now getting into the core of the module. Like I said earlier, the first few parts are... just let me have a second sip of water. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, the first 3 units are really just about the teaching sort of part. But here now you are learning, the main part, the core of the subject, which is the unit 4 and 5. First start with orienting ourselves in space. I've already made a small reference about using maps of your constituencies or of your region to show students or learners what lies a few kilometers from where they are. As I said, students who are in upper primary, these are young people in the age of 10, whatever, 12. So they have not really gone far from where they are originally from. So it's through maps that one can actually orientate him or herself in space, and understand that, okay, if we are talking about that the country, if we say Namibia, the size is 824,000 kilometers squared, what does it mean? How is that relative to your constituency? If your constituency is, for example, only 20,000 kilometers squared, so you probably need to understand now. The student will now get an understanding. So okay, so how many people are in Namibia? Then people start to question along those lines, because if you tell the students your constituency has 20,000 people, and there are 121 constituency in Namibia, students start to visualize themselves within the context of the country. So that's what we really need to understand. But of all this, the most important is the scale, and the most challenging part of this is the scale. because you will not you will be, for example, if you are given two maps and you need to calculate a scale for all those maps, because you'll be given, of course, you'll be able to measure your scale on your question paper. I will just try to illustrate here. If I give you a map of Namibia, just like that, and I take, for example, Commerce region, which is here, and I make it also big. Now that is Commerce region somewhere there, and I say, okay, now measure this distance on your map from here to here, and you get probably 3 centimeter. And you measure this same distance on the map on your answer sheet, and you get probably whatever distance you get. But then I'll tell you, okay, you got it 3 centimeter on your measurement, but in reality this distance here in reality is maybe 30 or 300 kilometers. So how do you put a scale to this map? So you need to use the distance in reality. The first thing that you need to do is to convert units into normally we convert to centimeter. It's because to make your work easier, you cannot be working with 2 units. It's not easy, and it's not even scientifically manageable to be working things that have 2 units. So the first thing is to convert your unit into the same unit, and then you start working on your scale. First, that's why you need to have that table that says 1 centimeter it's equal to how many kilometer, 1 decimeter, 1 meter. You need to know if 1 centimeter is 1 kilometer is 100,000 centimeter. Then how much is 300 kilometers? So you need, of course, to understand to be able to say, okay, if 1 centimeter is equal to 100,000, I mean 1 kilometer is 100,000 centimeter. So you ask yourself, 300 kilometer is equal to X, and you have to, of course, to cross multiply and be able to find out that you multiply this by this, and then in fact you just add these 2 zeros here if you want to use a centimeter. So you will have a small example here, which says because as I presented this course, in most cases is a scale that people struggle to get. So that's why I just presented a little bit of, say, what is a scale here. We say it's a numerical value representing the relationship between the size of a feature on the map to its original size. That's now the size on the ground. So if you use your classroom, for example, as to teach, so you already know that the people or students cannot draw the classroom in one paper, because the importance of the map scale, or any scale for that matter, is because if you want to work on Namibia, you want to understand maybe the regions and all the things, you will need a paper which is the size of the country, and that paper does not exist. So you have to be able to say, no, I will use 1 kilometer in reality as 1 centimeter on my paper, because I need to reduce that whole lot into a small space that I have. So because you cannot have Namibia, a paper which is the size of Namibia, or a paper which is the size of a soccer field. You cannot. So as you can see, the difference between the small scale map and large scale map is I try to put it very simple here, because unless if you ask what is a small scale map, we are actually saying that the objects appear smaller. while large scale map objects appear larger. So in this case, like in this case of the two maps that I drawn here, you'll be able, of course, to visualize which one is small scale, which one is large scale, because commas here appear smaller, which means that this is a small scale map, because within the whole Namibia but in this case the object in this case is commas. But even if it was your classroom, it will still be the same will still apply, because if you have a block of a class which is say 30 meters by 30 meters, and you have a small office which is 5 by 5, you need to reduce the block of the class very much to fit in the paper. So the object will appear smaller than its reality, and that's what means small scale. Right. I think as we move toward the conclusion of our lecture, or of our presentation, because I can see on my timer we have only 5 minutes left. So all these slides I understand will be available to you, so I cannot go through all the whole text, because otherwise we cannot finish. We still have more slides to go. Here is just to emphasize that a map just if I just put something here and I put some lines in it, and I put each line, maybe I put 300 here, I put 400 here, I hope you can see this, I put 500 here or 600 here. So these are lines in the map, and each line has a value, but nobody knows if that value is it elevation, is it the rainfall, is it what does that value mean? So you need to put a legend somewhere to say, okay, these values or these lines represent rainfall. Now, focusing in millimeter, we know, for example, that this area, this area here, gets something between 300 to 400 millimeter, for example, per year. So then I have to put the rainfall millimeter per year or something. If this was about elevation, I'll still put this is elevation in meters, for example. So there are some things, especially numerical values. Even if you put them as a scale on a legend, you will need to put the units. But if I put some areas in it, but these areas are constituencies, I don't need to put constituencies in square kilometer, because this is already a constituency. So I just put that, okay, these boundaries means constituencies. That's fine, right? So it's really up to you to be able to make a good judgment, and for this I'll encourage you to keep practicing. If you need something to work on, probably just send me an email. I'll still get back to my first slide once I'm done with this one, just to copy your email. So if you want something, because there is no way you can go through social science 1 to 3 or to 4 without meeting this question 3 to 4 times, because it's a very important aspect of geography. Right. Now, as we move toward the last 3 units, because it does not mean that they are okay. At 5 minutes, I'm getting a warning here. So as we move toward the last 3 units of our module, we are now getting to historical, or to understanding the understanding of history. The history of Namibia, or history of any person or country for that matter, or just for anything, is not only something that you need to know to remember facts and figures and who died when and who did what. The important part of history is to be able to understand how the past events influence the present. So you need to be thinking about those lines and how most likely the future will be, because if you are if you are living in this situation today, then you need to know why am I living like this? Why is another country living like this? Or why do we have friendly relations with China and not with Israel, for example? So all these sort of understanding need to be put into perspective as you understand the history, but also the collection of historical data. This is, we really just need to understand what are the primary data sources and what are the secondary data sources. And but as we move on, also, how do you teach history? Because even if you collect the data, how do you teach history? In most history classes, you normally have to use visuals, because it's history for that matter, so people cannot see it now. So if you tell me what happened in 1999 and 1990 during independence, or 78 during Kasinga, the only thing that can make me understand very well is if I see some of these pictures. But if you were teaching about something else which does not, which is current, then somebody can obviously see it on the news or somewhere else. But now, since you are talking about something which is in the past, you need to use a lot of visuals. So also about modern day communication technology, how, for example, social media is helping, it's working in politics. How, like now, this is communication technology that we are using now, that you are there, you don't need to come to here. So how do you use communication technology for a better to better your everyday way of doing things? But not only for the betterment of things, but you also need to understand what are the risks that come with communication technology, especially when it comes to child exposure to illicit and all these anti-social things. Right. Common mistakes to avoid. This is the second last, basically the last one. So because the last one is just to say the end, it's really just to say how do you. The first one I already referred to it, about misinterpretation of verbs, or not actually paying attention to verbs, and the omission of questions. Because if a question is 20 marks and you completely leave it out, then it means that you get a blank 0. But if you try it, you probably have a chance of getting 3. So write as much as you can. The time is up now. You can read all those other things that you need to avoid, and that's it for our presentation. Thank you very much. I'll go back to the first slide. That's the first slide, just for if somebody did not get the phone or the email, please engage me. I just need to project it nice again. Engage me, ask for questions. I would probably need to come up with a WhatsApp group, but I don't know how can I get all these contacts. But something, yeah, we need to start engaging, so that we make sure that you all get the best out of this course. Thank you very much and good luck.